Hey everybody, Rachel here from Rachthestamper.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make this really beautiful background. I did this using sponge daubers, a whole bunch of different sponge daubers I have, and glossy cardstock. And actually I'm going to do my best to remember how I did this, because I did use a few different colors and a lot of them blended into each other, but I'm going to do my best to show you what I used. So basically, with your sponge daubers, they do come in a pack. You get, I believe, 5 of them in a pack, and you can use them for different colors. All you have to do when you're finished is I just kind of rinse them out in the sink and then just let them air dry. And then I kind of will, if I do use them for something else, I'll just pick a similar. So I wouldn't use this in the blue. I'd pick a more blue one, no matter what it was. I did for a little while try to label them, but then I kind of got back to my lazy self and didn't really use the labels. But anyway, so I'll kind of stick with like purples for purple. I do have I believe this is chocolate chip. Black I probably would try not to use. No, here's chocolate chip. I would probably try not to use black on anything else. And if for some reason I had a white one, I think I would label that as white as well. That way I only used it on white. But I think those are probably the only 2 colors you need to be careful with. But these are really simple. Again, Stampin' Up does sell these, and you can find them in my online store. And basically, they fit on your finger, and then you just rub the color onto whatever it is you want to use. So again, we're going to use a piece of glossy cardstock because it does really lend to beautiful blending. And I'm going to see, again, if I can figure out which ones I used. And then I finished this up with the new stamp set. This is going to be in the new 2018-19 annual catalog from Stampin' Up. If you need a copy, you could certainly request one for me. I would love to send you one if you don't have a demonstrator. And I can send it out for free. All I need is your full mailing address, including your zip code, sent to rachthestamper@gmail.com. So I'm going to show you how to add this after the fact. So basically what I did was I started out with a yellow. So you could do Daffodil Delight if you wanted a little bit more of a yellowy yellow, but I kind of had a subtle one on this one. I did use So Saffron. So for this one, we'll use Daffodil Delight instead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pick one of my Daubers that kind of looks yellowish. So we'll go with this one here. And I get some ink on it. And basically just by dipping it, which is also another reason to have your re-inkers, because if you do a lot of stuff with the sponge dauber, it definitely picks up some ink from your ink pad. So you could do this also as well if you wanted to with ink refills. So basically I just kind of went in the center for this part to start. And I'm going to add just a little bit more to the top. Kind of just went for that center. Again, center look doesn't have to be exact. So, and I'm going to add in just a teeny bit of crushed curry down at the bottom. Now, since I'm going from a lighter to a darker color, I'm okay with transferring. I'm just add just a little bit here. And again, just kind of blend till the ink runs out. You'll notice it really doesn't ink anything up afterwards. Okay, so that was Daffodil Delight and crushed curry. Now, kind of all depends on where you want to go from here, okay? So I am going to get a different dauber. I was trying to go, I've seen a lot of really pretty like sunset colors on people's pictures, and a lot of them said that they've done some blue and some purple into it. But another way to kind of change that around is if you use a pink and then you could add a little blue to make a purple. So on this here, what I actually did was I used Berry Burst, and then I used Fresh Fig, and then at the very end I just added in a little bit of blue with Night of Navy. But what you could do, it kind of just depends, as I said, what you want to do. So for this one, we'll do a little bit of Melon Mambo. So I'm going to just, again, grab my dauber, just ink it up a little bit. And you kind of want to start lighter, so don't over ink it in the beginning. And then I kind of just went around the edge. And then once you get like that initial burst of color off, you can kind of go a little bit more into the middle. And you can see that yellow... so the yellows that we added, which were Crushed Curry and Daffodil Delight, combined with the Melon Mambo, also made that orange. So this is a really cool product of this because you can kind of spread out and get more colors than what you started. So once again, I'm going to just grab just a teeny bit more of the Melon Mambo and just bring it on to the side. Same thing on this one. This would be another great way if you wanted to make a rainbow background, because you can get a lot more colors with using minimal colors. So we have those, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in just a little bit of rich razzleberry. I'm going to use my same dauber again because I'm going from a pink to a purple. So just a little bit of rich razzleberry just on the edge here. And again, you want to start kind of off of the page and then work it in and then go back over your circle so you don't really end up with anything that's like a hard circle from the shape of the dauber. And then while I have this one, I'm going to go down around to the bottom just a little bit. And I'm going to tell you, this is one of those things where if you're worried about having inky fingers, you might want to wear gloves, because it's, no matter what you do, it's inevitable you're going to end up with inky fingers. So kind of just same thing with the rich raspberry, just bringing it in. So we have a little bit of a darker part here at the bottom. And then you can go in with a darker purple if you like. Cherry cobbler will be another way to get in a little bit more of a sunset color. And same thing, I have the same sponge dauber because we're kind of in the same family here. You can add a little bit of cherry cobbler to the bottom. And one other thing, when you do this, you could end up with having where you think your bottom is going to be flipping over, which is perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that. And again, the glossy paper does really lend to being able to blend this a lot longer than if you were on just a regular standard cardstock, because the gloss kind of helps it to move around a little bit. All right, so finally, I'm going to bring in a little bit of Night of Navy. You could certainly try Dapper Denim as well if you wanted to. And I'm going to grab a darker, I'm going to grab a blue. All right, so this is kind of where you're going to really get that purple that darkens up if that's what you're looking for, because any bit of red, or even when we had the cherry cobbler on there, is going to definitely lend to that purple, more purpley look. And then you'll see how we finish up the bottom here as well. So again, it just depends on what you want, how dark you want it. You can keep adding to it with your navy. So here's where you kind of run out of spots. So you kind of want to keep one clean finger, that way you can keep your center from getting blue on it. So what I'll try to do is try to keep one finger clean-ish. That way I can keep turning it without having the circle marks on it and having other colors on my yellow. You're going to just keep adding. Again, this is Night of Navy. And just kind of spreading it. It really looks like a heavenly kind of look. Ethereal, I believe, is what you call it. All right, so again, this is kind of now upside down. So you have your sun. I don't know if that's sun rising or sun setting, but whatever you want it to be. So if you want more, more darkness with your blue, you just have to keep going over it. The other thing is you're going to kind of hit a point where you can't really make it much darker unless you really take your ink pad and make it darker. So another cool thing you can do, and this is what I did on this one, just to kind of incorporate it. We could add a little bit of blueberry bushel in. Let's see what this looks like. So this is a new ink color. There we go. Oh, you know what? I did use this before because one of my Daubers had some glitter on it, if you can see. It's extra sparkly in that one spot. So I did use, I think, a little bit of blueberry bushel that made it worlds darker. Yeah, you can definitely see the difference on that. Okay, so I'm going to add just a little bit more to the corner. And again, I'm going to try to keep my one finger clean. That way I can try to keep this in position. And just make sure you don't have any like obvious poke marks with your, there we go. Okay, so now the way I finished this was, and these new stamp pads, in case you haven't seen them, these just open and flip kind of more like a compact. So they are a little stiff when you first get them, but they open up and flip really easily. So you open and flip, and then you slide it. And then when you close it, all you're going to do is just pull it to slide it back and flip it over. So they are pretty easy to open. So then what I did was I actually took, and you could do this with your archival pad if you want, but I did it with my Memento pad because I think it gave it a nicer depth. So what I did was two things. So I took my pad, first of all, and I decided which was up and which was down. So again, this is a little bit different. They're not going to ever really look exactly the same. So if you want more of your yellow shining through, just kind of don't fill it in quite as much. But I took my pad and I just went direct down. And I kind of only, in the beginning, I actually did a couple of these. It kind of makes it look like grass, the way the ink pad is. It has like its own, kind of like a texture. It really has like its own texture. So if you want it to be really dark, you can kind of leave it just like that. So that'll be really dark. Or what you could do is you could take your dauber if you didn't want it as dark. And what you could do is you can kind of blend it off. down at the bottom, and it kind of blends some of the color off, so you don't really have as many streaks, if you can see that. So you see right here, it's a little softer, and then you could always add a little black into the top if you wanted to with whatever you daubered off. And then the same thing on the top. You could also take your dauber and just ink it directly onto your Memento ink and bring it in if you wanted a little bit more of a dark look. Okay, and you're just going to be able to see, you're going to work in all these different, I'm going to just blur out this little line here because we're going to add in some shadow branches, kind of like flower branches. All right, so same thing again, using my Memento ink. Now this cool set is neat because it has grass that can be a shadow, it has these little flowers, it has birds, butterflies, all kinds of different stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my flowers and I'm going to just ink these up. Now when you stamp on the glossy paper, you do need to be careful that you go straight up and straight down because they really will smudge if you don't go straight up and down. Oops. And you can kind of make this, you know, however you want. You can even go back after the fact if you like, and you could smudge out some of these down at the bottom here. So you could take your sponge dauber and kind of smudge them out so they don't really have a distinct line of where they're coming from. Kind of looks like they're growing out of the weedy grass, like a marshy kind of look there. You could, again, if you wanted to, you could take your pad, go back again, and it is going to take a little bit of time for this to dry, so you want to make sure you set it on the side. You can kind of drag just a little something on the bottom with your pad, so you have like these little lines. So you could do that as well, like a little grass line. And then the final thing that I did was I put this really beautiful sentiment on, and I put it in just in black because I kind of thought that it really went nicely with the theme. So for this one, instead of what we already did, oops, that's not the one I wanted to grab. I'm going to grab the one that just says Miss You. But this is a great set to be able to do like sunrise or sunset things. And again, it just depends on what it is that you want to do with the card. And you can see once it dries, it does get a little bit more of a muted color. So right now it is very vivid black. It will definitely be a little bit more muted. So what you're going to do is with your pad, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to ink it up, which this is the awesome part about having the photopolymer stamps, because you can see exactly what they're going to look like and where they're going to go. And that way when you line them up, you don't have to worry about, did you get it in the right spot? So that's the cool part about photopolymer, since they are a physically clear stamp. So you have your Miss You, so you could put it over here. We'll put it right here. I think it'll look pretty right there. So you just want to make sure when you do this, you press down, because you do have to have your ink transfer. And then when you press up, you just want to make sure you pull directly up and don't smudge. That way, because things do smudge much easier on this glossy cardstock because it has, you know, has a little bit of a gloss to it. But really, really pretty. So you could just cut this, put it onto some Melon Mambo if you wanted to. And again, you can still, if you don't like the edge of this, you could go back in with your crushed curry. And again, you do want to make sure you get a clean dauber if you're going to go from one to the other. So get your crushed curry if you wanted a little bit more yellow in here. And you could just bring more yellow back. Make it more of a yellowy. Just going to dab that off before I go back to my ink pad. Kind of want to avoid the black for right now because, as you can see, it definitely still will smudge a little bit. So once this is dry, you can certainly go back and add a little bit more color to it. You could color over your oranges a little bit more, make it a little bit more vivid. Add a little bit more into your blue. Just make sure that if you do go back and do that, that you blend it all the way out to the edge. That way you're not going to have any obvious marks of circles on there. Okay, so very simple. Again, for this first one, I believe I used So Saffron in the center, and then I used Berry Burst and Fresh Fig for the top one, and then I added in just a little bit of the Blueberry Bushel, and then I did the same with the black. So, you know, definitely different variances. However, the way this looks now, it won't be quite as vivid once it dries. So you might think, it doesn't look so good. It's kind of the same when you watercolor. Originally, sometimes when you watercolor, what you start out with and what it looks like at the end are really worlds apart. So make sure if you are doing something like this, something that you've tried for the first time, or you're watercoloring and you're really not thrilled with it and you're like, well, doesn't look like the way so-and-so did it. let it dry, walk away, do something else, and come back, and it probably will look really, really cool. So anyway, I'll post a picture of both of these when I actually put them to cards, and I'll post this one especially, that way you can see what it looks like once it's dried. So I hope this helps you guys out. Thank you so much for requesting me to do this video. I was going to do it, but you made me do it a little bit faster. Again, you can get the sponge daubers in the online store. You can get all of the supplies needed to make this card and more in my online store 24/7 at rachthestamper.stampinup.net. Thanks for watching and have a great day.